God's chosen ones, get ready. This is what you will 100% become. Tonight, vertical bar Eliora path. Ever felt like God has been trying to reach you, but you've been too distracted to hear his voice? Do you sometimes sense a calling so deep within your soul that it keeps you awake at night? What if I told you that right now, in this exact moment, heaven has literally suspended time just for you? Stop scrolling right now. This isn't just another video. This is a divine arrest. Before I share what God has placed on my heart tonight, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. Now listen carefully. You did not find this message by accident. This isn't algorithm. This isn't coincidence. This is divine orchestration. When you clicked on this video, God himself reached across eternity, touched your screen, and brought you here because he has something specific to say to you tonight. I feel a holy trembling as I speak these words. For some of you, this will be the most important spiritual encounter of your entire year. The very fact that you're still watching right now is confirmation. Your spirit recognizes truth before your mind can process it. That stirring in your chest, that's not emotion, that's recognition. Your soul knows when heaven is speaking directly to it. You are standing at heaven's door, and God just turned the handle. For 50 years I've been studying the patterns of divine visitation, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, there are moments when the veil between heaven and earth becomes paper thin. This is one of those moments. The Lord showed me that thousands watching this would be at a critical crossroads, caught between who you've been and who God designed you to be. You've been waiting for a sign. This is it. Right now, angels are hovering over your situation. Spiritual forces are aligning specifically for your breakthrough. I don't say this lightly. If your spirit is already bearing witness to what I'm saying, comment 999 below. That's not just a number, it's a prophetic declaration of completion. The end of your waiting season. The beginning of divine fulfillment. Like this video as a prophetic act of agreement with heaven's agenda for your life. This isn't just engagement, it's alignment. I must warn you with holy reverence, if you scroll past this moment, if you dismiss what's happening in the spirit realm right now, you may miss your entire next season of blessing. Doors that were scheduled to open may remain closed. Favor that was assigned to you may be redirected. Heaven is calling your name tonight. Will you answer? Have you ever walked into a room full of people and felt utterly alone? Have you caught yourself thinking differently, seeing things others simply cannot see? Do you sometimes feel like an outsider in your own family, like somehow you were dropped into the wrong life? I see you nodding. I feel that recognition in your spirit. For decades, you've carried this knowing, this sense that you were meant for something more, something different, something that others around you couldn't quite understand. You've spent years trying to fit in, haven't you? Tried to dim your light, lower your voice, shrink your expectations just to make others comfortable. You've smiled and nodded when people told you to be realistic about your dreams. You've swallowed the pain when they dismissed your spiritual insights as foolishness. Let me tell you something that will change everything. You're not broken. You've just been assigned a blueprint others weren't given. In the book of John, Jesus prayed these words about his disciples. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. John 17:16. That wasn't just about 12 men 2,000 years ago. That was about you. You see, some souls are placed on this earth not to blend in, but to stand apart. Not to conform, but to transform. You are what the Bible calls a peculiar people, chosen for divine purpose. Like a tuning fork in a world of noise, you vibrate to heaven's frequency. That's why small talk exhausts you, while deep conversation energizes your soul. That's why you can sense when someone is lying, even when their words sound perfect. That's why you've always felt things so deeply, noticed what others overlook, cared when others remained indifferent. Remember when Joseph told his brothers about his dreams? Genesis 37 tells us, "They hated him all the more." Your vision has made you a target too, hasn't it? Your sensitivity, your spiritual awareness, your refusal to settle for what everyone else accepts. These things have made you appear strange to those who don't share your calling. But what if I told you that the very things that made you feel different are actually your greatest gifts? Those moments when your heart breaks for strangers, when you pray and actually feel God's presence, when you dream so vivid they seem more real than waking life. These aren't abnormalities, they're anointings. You were never meant to fit in. You were created to stand out. Think about Ruth, a foreigner who left everything familiar to follow an unseen God. Or David, who heard music in his soul that no one else could hear. Or Esther, who carried royalty in her spirit long before she wore a crown. Your life has been a preparation, not a mistake. All those years of feeling misunderstood, they were training. All those tears you cried in secret, they were watering seeds of purpose. All those times you wondered, "What's wrong with me?" The answer was always, absolutely nothing. God hasn't been silent in your life. He's been setting the stage. Can you feel it? That resonance in your chest right now? That's your spirit recognizing truth. That's the tuning fork of your soul vibrating in perfect harmony with heaven's frequency. For some of you watching, this is the moment decades in the making. The confirmation you've been waiting for, the divine mirror reflecting back who you truly are. If this message is striking that chord deep within you, if you're finally seeing yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time, type "That's me" in the comments below. Not as a casual response, but as a holy declaration, a public acknowledging of your true identity. Because here's what happens next. Once you recognize who you really are, you can finally stop apologizing for your differences and start walking in your calling. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs the original that God designed you to be. You've spent so many years asking, "Why am I like this?" But heaven has been asking, "When will they finally embrace who I've made them to be?" That time is now, tonight. And that feeling of being different, it wasn't a curse, it was a coronation. So what happens when you finally step into the fullness of this divine blueprint? What awaits when you stop hiding your differences and start celebrating them? That's what we're about to discover, as heaven itself begins to unveil the warfare that's been raging around your life, and why the enemy has worked so hard to keep you from discovering your true identity. Let me speak something over you that few will have the courage to tell you. The reason your life has been so hard isn't because God forgot about you. It's because the enemy remembers exactly who you are. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to glide through life while you've had to fight for every single inch of ground? Why doors that swing wide open for others seem bolted shut in your face? Why your prayers sometimes feel like they're hitting a brass ceiling? It's time you understood the war behind your struggle. Job 5-7 tells us, "Man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward." But what Scripture doesn't say is that not all trouble is created equal. The level of warfare you face is directly proportional to the level of glory you're called to carry. I've counseled thousands of believers over 5 decades, and I've noticed something profound. The most anointed among them faced the most ferocious attacks. This isn't coincidence, it's spiritual strategy. The enemy never attacked your past, he was terrified of your future. Think about David. Before he ever wore a crown, he faced a bear, a lion, and a giant. Before he ruled a kingdom, he lived in caves, running for his life. The warfare wasn't random, it was targeted. Psalm 105:19 says, "Until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character." God was building his spiritual muscles for destiny. That diagnosis that blindsided you at 52, that betrayal from someone you trusted completely, that financial collapse when you were finally getting ahead, these weren't just bad luck. They were strategic strikes against your calling. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on non-threats. When you understand this truth, everything changes. Your perspective shifts. Your pain transforms from punishment into preparation. You've been fighting battles your ancestors couldn't survive. Let that sink in. The reason your grandparents never achieved what you're reaching for isn't because they didn't have faith. It's because they weren't assigned to cross the threshold you're crossing. Every generation has its ceiling, and you were chosen to break through yours. Hebrews 11:39-40 says, "These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us." Some of you are carrying the accumulated promises of 4 generations before you. That's why the attack feels so intense. That's why the pressure seems crushing at times. You're not just fighting for your breakthrough, you're fighting for theirs too. I remember Mrs. Eleanor, an 81-year-old widow from Syracuse. After losing her husband of 60 years, depression descended like a thick fog. Her children suggested medication, but something in her spirit resisted. "This isn't just grief," she told me, "this is warfare." For 6 months, she battled suicidal thoughts, until one morning during prayer, she heard the Lord whisper, "The enemy wants you gone because your prayers are breaking generational chains." That very day, her grandson called, weeping. After 20 years of addiction, he'd surrendered his life to Christ. The attack made sense. The breakthrough was worth it. How many times have you cried in secret while holding everyone else up? How many nights have you questioned if the warfare would ever end, while speaking faith to others who were ready to quit? Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." This isn't just theological theory. This is your daily reality. The reason ordinary weapons haven't worked is because these aren't ordinary battles. The reason conventional wisdom fails you is because your assignment isn't conventional. Let me prophesy something over you right now. That unexplainable pressure you've been feeling lately, that's not the enemy winning. That's the pressure of glory being compressed inside your spirit. It's uncomfortable because transformation always is. You were born in fire because you were called to carry glory. Gold requires the hottest furnace. Diamonds need the greatest pressure. And you, chosen one, have been sustained through impossible heat, because what God is forming in you cannot be formed any other way. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 4:17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." So, as we move forward tonight, I want you to reframe your struggle. What if everything you've endured wasn't punishment, but preparation? What if your greatest wounds are about to become your most powerful weapons? The war you've been fighting was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. And that revelation is about to change everything. Do you know why some people seem to recognize authority in you, even when you haven't said a word? Have you ever walked into a room and felt eyes drawn to you without explanation? Have you noticed how spiritual warfare seems to find you, even when you've done nothing to provoke it? It's because you carry a mark that's invisible to the natural eye, but blazingly evident in the spirit realm. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. This revelation has been hidden from most believers, but God is unveiling it to his chosen ones in this final hour. Before the foundation of the world, before stars were hung in the heavens, before time itself began ticking, God took a divine pen and wrote your name in his book. Not just any book, but the Lamb's book of life. This wasn't a casual notation, this was a royal decree. In Jeremiah 1-5, God declares this eternal truth. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Let that sink into your spirit for a moment. Before your mother knew she was carrying you, God had already completed your assignment papers. Before the doctor announced, "It's a boy," or "It's a girl," heaven had already announced, "It's a warrior." Before your first breath, heaven etched your name into destiny. This is why your life has never quite fit the normal pattern. This is why you've always felt that unexplainable pull toward deeper things, toward greater purpose. You weren't imagining it. You weren't being prideful. You were sensing the mark. Think about it like a royal seal pressed into hot wax. When a king would send a message, he would take his signet ring, press it into melted wax, and instantly that ordinary parchment became a royal decree. That document now carried authority, not because of what it was, but because of whose mark it bore. You, chosen one, carry God's royal seal. Heaven has tattooed its plans onto your soul. The enemy sees this mark. That's why he's attacked you so relentlessly. That's why he sent confusion when others received clarity. That's why he sent rejection when others received acceptance. That's why finances dried up just when you were about to advance. He wasn't attacking who you are now. He was terrified of who you're becoming. But here's what the enemy failed to understand. The mark can't be erased. It can be temporarily covered, it can be momentarily forgotten, but it cannot be removed. It's embedded in your spiritual DNA. 1 Peter 2-9 confirms this divine marking. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. You're not just anybody. You're not just somebody. You are a marked somebody. You are God's special possession, hand-picked, custom-designed, specifically chosen. When Samuel came to Jesse's house looking for the next king, he passed by 7 qualified sons before finding David, the forgotten one in the field. Why? Because Samuel was looking for something specific, the mark of divine destiny. It wasn't about appearance, it wasn't about qualifications, it wasn't even about current position. It was about the invisible mark that God recognizes instantly. That same mark rests on you right now. I prophesy to someone watching, you've been the forgotten one, the overlooked one, the one they left in the field. But heaven sees the mark, and your time of obscurity is ending tonight. During the Exodus from Egypt, God instructed his people to place the blood of a lamb on their doorposts. When the destroyer came through, he had to pass over every home that carried the mark. That blood wasn't just decoration, it was divine protection. It didn't just symbolize salvation, it activated it. In the same way, the spiritual mark on your life isn't just symbolic, it's active, it's alive, it's working on your behalf even when you're sleeping. I need you to do something right now that will activate what heaven has ordained. Place your hand on your heart and declare aloud, I was marked, I will walk in it. Say it again with authority, I was marked, I will walk in it. Something just shifted in the atmosphere around you. Doors that were locked are creaking open. Angels that were waiting are now being dispatched. Resources that were held up are being released. Why now? Why today? Because you're finally acknowledging what heaven established long ago. This marking isn't new. It's just finally being activated. And now as we move forward, I need to show you exactly what this spiritual marking means for your next season, because what's coming isn't just a blessing, it's a complete realignment with your original design. The question is no longer whether you're chosen. The question now becomes, are you ready for what this choosing requires? Have you ever wondered why God made you different? Why you've always been the one people turn to when their worlds are falling apart? Why you're the shoulder everyone cries on, but when your own heart is shattered, there's nowhere for you to go? I see you, chosen one. For 50 years I've watched this pattern in God's strongest vessels. You weren't designed like others. You were built to carry weight that would crush ordinary souls. When the room falls silent, they look to you. When crisis hits, they call your name. When everyone else is panicking, they expect you to remain steady. And you have. But at what cost? People think you're strong because you never broke, but they never saw you bleed in silence. They never witnessed those midnight hours when you cried out to God asking, "Why me? Why must I always be the one who carries everyone else?" In Isaiah 53:3, the prophet describes our Savior. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. This wasn't just describing Jesus physically, it was describing his soul position. The one who carried what others couldn't. That's the blueprint God used when he made you. Pause and let that truth sink deep into your spirit. You were designed with greater capacity, not for your comfort, but for kingdom purpose. The isolation wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Remember Moses? For 40 years he walked alone in the wilderness. 40 years. Can you imagine the loneliness, the questions, the doubt? Yet without that season of isolation, he would never have become the deliverer of a nation. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned and forgotten. For 13 long years, he carried burdens that would have destroyed most men. But Genesis 50:20 reveals the divine strategy. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your isolation has divine purpose. Do you understand what I'm saying to you right now? Your ability to stand when others fall, to speak when others are silenced, to believe when others doubt. It wasn't random. It was royal. Have you ever studied how buildings are constructed? The deeper the building will rise, the deeper its foundation must go. No one sees the foundation, no one celebrates it, no one takes pictures of it. Yet everything stands because of what lies beneath. That's you. While others were building their social media platforms, you were building character. While they were chasing applause, you were developing spiritual authority. While they were learning how to be seen, you were learning how to truly see. And now, the contrast is becoming clear. When the storms of life hit, those built on shallow foundations crumble. But you remain standing, not because you're lucky, but because you're anchored. The very isolation that felt like rejection was actually divine protection. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah felt so alone in his calling that he begged God to take his life. "I am the only one left," he cried out. But God's response stunned him. "I reserve 7,000 in Israel all, whose knees have not bowed down to Baal. Hear me clearly. You are not alone in your strength. There are others who understand your journey, who carry what you carry, who bleed as you bleed. The weight on your shoulders, the burden in your heart, the responsibility that keeps you awake at night. It's not because God abandoned you, it's because he entrusted you." Matthew 11:28-30 reminds us of Christ's invitation. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This doesn't mean the weight disappears. It means you no longer carry it alone. Tonight, something profound is shifting in the spirit. The very strength that isolated you is about to connect you. The capacity that separated you is about to elevate you. What if the loneliness wasn't rejection, but reservation? What if God kept certain people away because they weren't aligned with your calling? What if the empty spaces weren't punishment, but protection? Right now, in homes across this nation, thousands of chosen ones like you are realizing the divine contrast. You carried more than anyone knew, endured what others couldn't imagine, stood when everyone else fled. If this speaks to your soul, if you recognize this sacred burden, comment below. I've carried more than they knew. Your testimony will strengthen others who thought they walked alone. Because tonight, the contrast becomes clear. The very weight that seemed to separate you is about to become the platform that distinguishes you. Your time of isolated strength is ending. The season of recognized authority is beginning. Are you ready to discover why God made you different from the beginning? Why certain doors remained closed while others opened? Why your spirit has always carried a heaviness that others couldn't understand? Look at Joseph, standing in an Egyptian palace. Look at Moses, parting the Red Sea. Look at Esther, changing the fate of a nation with a single dinner invitation. Now look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Do you see an ordinary person struggling with bills and health concerns? Or do you see what heaven sees, a living continuation of the most powerful spiritual blueprint God ever designed? I've spent 50 years studying the divine patterns of God's chosen ones, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, there is nothing random about your life. The obstacles, the unexpected turns, the moments when you thought you were forgotten, they were all part of a sacred script written before you took your first breath. Joseph didn't understand why his brothers threw him into a pit, sold him as a slave, or why he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. For 13 long years, he could have believed he was abandoned. But what looked like rejection was actually divine protection. What appeared to be a detour was actually the exact path to his destiny. Genesis 50-20 reveals the stunning truth when Joseph finally understood. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Have you been thrown into pits? Have people you trusted sold you out? Have you been falsely accused or misunderstood? If your heart is pounding right now, it's because your spirit recognizes the pattern. You're not just hearing about Joseph, you're reliving his journey. This isn't coincidence. This is confirmation. Look at Moses, forced to flee everything he knew at age 40, spent the next 40 years in obscurity, tending sheep in the wilderness. Imagine that. After being raised in Pharaoh's palace, he's suddenly nobody, just an old man with a staff, watching sheep day after day, year after year. But Exodus 3-4 shows us the divine purpose behind the delay. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush. That burning bush moment wasn't just for Moses, it's for you. Right now, in your 70s, your 80s, God is saying, I haven't forgotten you. I've been preparing you. Your life isn't random. It's a mirrored echo of divine prototypes. Consider David, anointed as a teenager but spent the next 15 years running for his life, hiding in caves, living in constant danger while the promise seemed impossibly distant. In Psalm 13:1, his cry might feel familiar. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? Have you ever prayed that prayer? Have you ever wondered if God's promise for your life was just a cruel joke? If you're nodding right now, you're not losing faith. You're walking the exact same path as the man God called after his own heart. And what about Esther, an orphan girl raised by her cousin, suddenly thrust into a national crisis? Esther 4:14 contains perhaps the most powerful revelation for this exact moment in your life. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Your age is not a disqualification, it's a qualification. Your struggles haven't disqualified you from your destiny, they've prepared you for it. I need you to grasp this with everything in you. The pattern we see in Scripture isn't just history, it's prophecy. It's the blueprint for your life. The rejection Joseph faced, that was your divorce 30 years ago. The wilderness Moses endured, that was your career setback, your health crisis, those decades when it felt like God had forgotten you. The caves where David hid, that was your depression, your season of isolation, when no one understood the call on your life. Esther's moment of decision, that's right now. This moment, this night, the crossroads where you decide if all the pain had purpose. Let me reveal something that will change everything. You're not the exception to God's pattern, you're the continuation of it. Heaven isn't writing a new story through you, it's continuing the most powerful story ever told. Your life isn't a footnote, it's a chapter in the greatest book ever written. I want you to take a moment right now, and in the comments, share which biblical figure's journey resonates most deeply with your own. Is it Joseph's betrayal, David's long wait, Moses' late life calling, Esther's divine positioning? Type their name below. This isn't just a comment, it's a prophetic declaration. It's you recognizing the divine pattern woven through your life. Because here's the stunning truth that's about to explode in your spirit. The same God who turned Joseph's pit into a palace, who transformed Moses' staff into a nation, delivering miracle, who made David's cave a training ground for kingship, who positioned Esther to save her people, that same God is positioning you right now for the greatest purpose of your entire life. But will you recognize the pattern, or will you miss your moment because it doesn't look the way you expected? You feel it, don't you? That tension in the spirit. It's not just in your mind, it's palpable. Like the air before a thunderstorm, when everything goes unnaturally still. The birds stop singing, the leaves hang motionless, and there's that electric charge that makes the hair on your arms stand up. Something is happening in the spiritual atmosphere right now. I've walked with God for 5 decades, and I recognize this holy tension. This isn't ordinary spiritual awareness. This is a prophetic interruption, breaking into your everyday routine. Chosen ones, listen carefully. God is not bound by our timelines or schedules. When heaven decides to move, it doesn't send a calendar invitation. It crashes through, disrupting everything we thought was solid. The question isn't whether God is moving. The question is, are you sensitive enough to perceive it? In Acts 2, the disciples weren't expecting Pentecost that morning. They were simply gathered in one place, probably talking about ordinary things, when suddenly, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. Suddenly, not gradually, not eventually, suddenly. This is what's happening right now in your living room, in your kitchen, wherever you're watching this. A sudden shift, a divine disruption, and I can feel it through the screen. You've been praying for change, haven't you? You've been crying out for God to move, to heal, to restore. You've been faithful, showing up at church, reading your Bible, serving others, but secretly, in your heart, you've wondered if anything would ever actually change. Stop wondering, start perceiving. The problem with most believers today, especially those of us with decades of faith under our belts, is that we've become too familiar with waiting. We've grown comfortable with delay. We've normalized postponement, and in that normalization, we've lost our ability to recognize divine urgency when it arrives. Can I be brutally honest with you for a moment? Some of you have been praying for the same breakthrough for 20 years, 30 years, maybe even 40 years. Your prayer has become a habit rather than a hunger. Your expectation has faded into resignation. You no longer look up when you pray because you've grown tired of disappointment. But Habakkuk 2-3 declares, For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. The appointed time isn't some distant date on heaven's calendar. The appointed time is now. The lingering is over. The waiting has served its purpose. I need you to understand something profound about divine timing. God doesn't measure time in days or years like we do. He measures it in readiness. And something has shifted in you that has triggered heaven's attention. You are finally ready for what God has been preparing. Can you sense it? That quickening in your spirit, that sacred restlessness that won't let you settle. That's not anxiety, that's alignment. That's your spirit recognizing something your mind can't yet comprehend. Remember Elijah on Mount Carmel. After years of drought, he told his servant, "Go and look toward the sea." 6 times there was nothing. But the 7th time, the servant reported, "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." That tiny cloud was the harbinger of a massive storm. What looked insignificant was actually the beginning of a deluge. This stirring you feel right now, this subtle shift in your spiritual atmosphere, it's your cloud the size of a man's hand. Don't dismiss it because it seems small. Don't ignore it because it's not yet thundering. This is how breakthrough begins, with a whisper before the roar. Something is shifting in the atmosphere. Not next year, not next week, tonight. Every fiber of my being is trembling as I speak these words. Heaven is holding its breath, waiting on your yes. All of creation is groaning, as Romans 8 tells us, waiting for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed. That's you. That's right now. In Esther 4:14, Mordecai told Esther, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" I'm telling you with prophetic certainty, you have been positioned, prepared, and preserved for this exact moment in history. The waiting wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The silence wasn't absence. It was alignment. But here's what you must understand with crystal clarity. This moment requires your participation. Heaven will not force this shift upon you. Divine interruption always invites human cooperation. That's why I'm asking you right now, with holy urgency, to make a declaration of faith. Don't just listen passively. Don't just nod in agreement. Engage your spirit with this prophetic moment. Say it now, I receive the shift. Say it with conviction, as if your next season depends on it, because it does. Stand up if you can. Raise your hands if you're able. Break out of passive consumption and step into active faith. I receive the shift. The atmosphere is crackling with possibility. Can you feel it surging through you? This isn't emotion. This is anointing. This isn't hype. This is holy. This is the moment where everything changes, if you have the courage to say yes to what heaven is initiating. And as we move into what's coming next, I need you to stay spiritually alert. The shift has begun, but what follows will require even greater faith. Are you ready for what God is about to reveal? Chosen one, listen closely. What I'm about to reveal isn't just information, it's activation. For too long, you've seen yourself through the cracked mirror of your failures, your disappointments, your unmet expectations. But tonight, God is replacing that shattered reflection with divine vision. This is what you are becoming, 100% guaranteed. Not what you hope to become, not what you're striving to become, what heaven has already decreed you will become, because destiny isn't wishful thinking. It's predetermined glory waiting for your surrender. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Did you catch that? God doesn't say, I might have plans, or I'm considering your future. He says, I know the plans. Your becoming isn't a question mark to heaven. It's a period at the end of a divine sentence. Many of you watching right now are in your 60s, 70s, even 80s, and the enemy has whispered that your greatest days are behind you. What a pathetic lie from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when he confronted Pharaoh. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna was elderly when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Your gray hair isn't a sign of expiration. It's the crown of wisdom for your greatest assignment. Let me speak directly to your spirit right now. The version of you that's emerging isn't defined by social security checks or retirement communities. You're not becoming who your children think you are. You're not becoming what your doctor's reports suggest. You're not becoming what your past failures predicted. You're becoming who heaven designed before time began. When God looks at you, he doesn't see Medicare and medications. He sees a warrior with battle scars that qualify you to lead others through their own valleys. He sees hands that have weathered enough storms to now build arcs for the next generation. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are the answer to a prayer your bloodline never even knew to pray. Your grandchildren will walk in freedom because of battles you're fighting right now. Your community will experience revival because of seeds you're planting today. Nations will shift because of prayers you're praying in your living room. Close your eyes for just a moment and let this truth wash over you like holy water. The broken pieces of your life were never random. They were raw materials in the Master's hands. Before, you felt forgotten, overlooked, set aside. After, you are remembered, chosen, positioned strategically. Before, you saw yourself as damaged goods, too broken to be useful. After, your very scars have become healing maps for others lost in the same wilderness you conquered. Before, you were a builder of earthly things that rust and fade. After, you are a builder of eternal legacies that outlive your physical body. Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing, now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? Isaiah 43:18, -19. Heaven is asking you a direct question. Shall you not know it? Will you recognize the new thing God is doing in you? Or will you keep looking backward when God is propelling you forward? I feel in my spirit that someone watching needs to hear this. The very area where you feel most disqualified is precisely where God is about to credential you with supernatural authority. Your financial collapse is becoming financial wisdom that will rescue others. Your health crisis is becoming healing ministry that will restore others. Your family heartbreak is becoming restoration anointing that will reconcile generations. Right now, in homes across America, there are seniors watching who feel invisible to society. But I prophesy to you, God is about to make you so visible that people will have to acknowledge that only divine intervention could explain your impact. You're not becoming smaller with age. You're becoming more concentrated with power. You're not becoming less relevant. You're becoming more essential. You're not becoming a burden. You're becoming a cornerstone. Can you see it yet? Can you glimpse who you're becoming? I challenge you right now. Visualize who God says you are becoming and write it in the comments below. Not as wishful thinking, but as prophetic declaration. I am becoming. When Ezekiel stood in the valley of dry bones, God asked, "Can these bones live?" The prophet could have looked at the evidence: dryness, death, disconnection. Instead, he looked at the God who specializes in resurrection. Tonight, you stand in your own valley. Parts of your life may seem dead and disconnected, but the breath of God is about to hit those dry places, and what looked finished will become flourishing. What seemed dead will dance again. Your transformation isn't gradual evolution, it's supernatural metamorphosis. The caterpillar doesn't slowly grow wings. It dissolves completely in the chrysalis before emerging as something entirely new. Right now, in this divine moment, you are in the chrysalis. The old is dissolving. And what emerges next will leave people saying, "Only God could have done this." So what will you become? Who will you become when these prophetic words fully manifest in your life? Let me speak directly to your heart for a moment, because what I'm about to reveal isn't just another message. This is divine revelation for the chosen ones who have walked through fire. Have you ever asked God, with tears streaming down your face, "Why me? Why this pain? Why this struggle?" Have you ever felt abandoned in your suffering, wondering if God had forgotten your address? I see you. Those sleepless nights, those silent prayers, those moments when you smiled in public but collapsed in private. What if I told you that every single tear you've shed has been collected? What if every moment of heartbreak was actually a divine rehearsal? You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Psalm 56:8. God hasn't just been watching your suffering. He's been measuring it, weighing it, recording it. Not a single moment was wasted. Not one tear fell without purpose. This isn't spiritual platitude. This is kingdom alchemy. Look at Joseph in the Bible, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned and forgotten. For 13 long years, Joseph's life was nothing but one crushing blow after another. But what happened next? The pit became a pathway to the palace. The prison became preparation for prime ministry. The betrayal became the very bridge to his blessing. Joseph himself declared it, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. Your suffering isn't random, it's strategic. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. That season of rejection didn't disqualify you, it distinguished you. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if the very thing that broke you is about to become the thing that God uses to break open doors that have been sealed shut for generations in your family? The world looks at scars and sees damage. God looks at scars and sees development. Consider Job. He lost everything. His wealth, his children, his health, his reputation. His friends betrayed him. His wife suggested he curse God and die. Yet after his season of suffering, the Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. Job 42:12. Job's pain had purpose, and so does yours. But here's where it gets even more profound, and I need you to lean in close for this. Jesus Christ himself, the Son of God, was not exempt from this divine process. Isaiah 53:5 tells us, "He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. The Messiah was crushed." Let that sink in for a moment. The crushing wasn't the end of his story, it was the beginning of his glory. The cross wasn't his defeat, it was his doorway. The grave wasn't his conclusion, it was his coronation chamber. What looked like failure on Friday became freedom on Sunday. And chosen one, the same spiritual principle is at work in your life right now. The pit is not your prison, it's your womb. Your suffering is not your sentence, it's your seminary. Every rejection was training for your reign. Every betrayal was building your discernment. Every financial struggle was forming your faith. Every health battle was deepening your dependence on the healer. Nothing, absolutely nothing, has been wasted. Those nights you cried yourself to sleep, God was collecting warrior tears. Those times when friends walked away, God was separating you for something sacred. Those moments when you couldn't see a way forward, God was developing your spiritual vision. I prophesy over you right now, the very thing that tried to destroy you will become the foundation of your testimony. The pain that almost broke you will become the platform for your breakthrough. Right now, in homes across America, I see elderly saints who've endured decades of difficulty. You've carried burdens silently. You've weathered storms faithfully. You've wondered if anyone saw your sacrifice. God saw. God recorded. God is about to respond. Right now, I want you to place your hand over your heart and declare out loud, "My pain had a purpose." Say it again, with authority. My pain had a purpose. The alchemists of old tried to turn lead into gold, but God does something far more miraculous. He turns tears into triumph, mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty. Your suffering wasn't the end of your story. It was the birth canal of your glory. And now, as we stand at this prophetic threshold, I must ask you, are you ready to see how God will use everything, yes, everything, you've endured to build something beautiful beyond imagination? Let me paint this moment clearly for you, so there's no confusion about what's happening right now in the spirit realm. You're standing at a divine threshold, a holy boundary line between who you've been and who God destined you to become. This is not just another night in your life. This is the night. For 40 years, the Israelites circled in the wilderness. 40 years of the same mountains, the same struggles, the same battles. Why? Because they refused to cross their threshold when God first opened it. A journey that should have taken 11 days, stretched into 40 years of wandering. Deuteronomy 1-2 tells us, "It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea." 11 days stretched into 40 years because of one moment of hesitation. How many years have you been circling your mountain? Chosen one. I sense in my spirit that many of you watching right now have been in a holding pattern for far too long. You've been praying the same prayers, fighting the same fears, rehearsing the same excuses, decade after decade. And all the while, heaven has been waiting for you to simply step across the threshold. The door is open tonight. It's been open this whole time. But here's the sobering truth that I must speak over your life right now. Doors don't stay open forever. Even divine doors have seasons. Revelation 3-8 says, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." But the opposite is also true. What God closes, no man can open. There are spiritual windows that, once they close for a generation. You've been marching around your Jericho long enough. For some of you, you've completed your 7th circuit. You've done the preparation. You've endured the silence. You've walked when you couldn't see the outcome. And now, heaven is waiting for just one thing, your shout. I need you to understand this with every fiber of your being. What happens tonight determines the next 10 years of your life. This is not hyperbole, this is prophetic insight. I've counseled thousands of seniors over my 50 years in ministry, and I've witnessed this pattern again and again. Those who recognized their divine moment and acted on it entered seasons of unprecedented favor and purpose. Those who hesitated, those who said, maybe tomorrow, those who needed one more sign, they watched their moment pass them by. And at 60, 70, or 80 years old, you understand better than most that time is precious. You don't have another 40 years to circle this mountain. Tonight is the night. I want you to think about Naomi in the book of Ruth. After losing everything, her husband, her sons, her security, she stood at a threshold. She could have remained in bitterness, even changed her name to Mara, meaning bitter. But instead, she positioned herself and her daughter-in-law for a divine encounter that would place them directly in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. Your next move doesn't just affect you, it affects generations you will never meet. Some of you right now are feeling a holy discomfort. Your heart is racing. Your palms might be sweating. That's not anxiety. That's the Holy Spirit confirming this word is for you. In Isaiah 6-8, God asked, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" Isaiah's response changed history. "Here am I, send me." Not tomorrow, not when I feel ready, not when all my questions are answered. Now. What is your response in this threshold moment? I'm going to ask you to do something prophetic right now, something that might feel uncomfortable. I want you to physically stand up from your seat. Yes, right now. Even if you're in your living room alone, even if you're watching this in bed, stand up. Break the inertia of delay. Your physical body needs to come into alignment with what your spirit is sensing. This act of standing is your Isaac moment. When Abraham raised the knife, God provided the ram. But the provision didn't come until the obedience was in motion. For those whose bodies are weak or unable to stand, raise your hand high. Make a physical declaration with whatever strength heaven has given you. What you've been waiting for is waiting for you on the other side of this threshold. The healing you've been praying for, the purpose you've been searching for, the peace that has eluded you for decades. You've carried the weight of unfulfilled promises long enough. You've endured the pain of delay long enough. You've questioned your worth and your calling long enough. Tonight, all of heaven is leaning in, watching to see if you'll finally step through the door God opened specifically for you. Don't let the sun rise on another day of hesitation. Don't carry the burden of what if into another season. For such a time as this wasn't just Esther's moment. It's yours. Right now, the kingdom is waiting. Your purpose is waiting. What happens in the next few moments, as we continue this journey together, will either launch you into your divine destiny or keep you circling the same mountain for another season. The choice, beloved, is yours. But know this, heaven is ready. The angels are positioned. The provision is prepared. Are you ready to cross your threshold tonight? Beloved chosen ones, as we draw our time together to a close, I want to seal these divine truths deep within your spirit. Remember what God has revealed to you tonight. You were never meant to wander aimlessly. You were marked before birth, forged through trials for a divine purpose, and positioned exactly where you are for heaven's next move in your life. The threshold you've been hesitating to cross is the very doorway to your destiny. Your past suffering wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your delays weren't denial, they were divine alignment. And that stirring in your soul right now is not just emotion, it's holy recognition of your calling. Dear one, hear me clearly. You are not alone in this journey. The God who parted the Red Sea, the God who raised Lazarus from the dead, the God who turned water into wine, that same God is actively working in your life right now, orchestrating circumstances, aligning relationships, and preparing blessings you cannot yet see. And beyond the divine presence that never leaves you, there is this community, this family of believers walking similar paths. Look at the comments below. See the 999S and "That's me" declarations from thousands of others who received this word tonight. You're surrounded by witnesses to this sacred moment. I wonder, what would happen if you truly believed, with every fiber of your being, that tonight marked the end of your wilderness season? What if this wasn't just another inspirational message, but the divine appointment that finally propelled you across your threshold? My dear friends, I would love to hear how this message has touched your heart tonight. What threshold are you crossing? What mountain have you been circling that God is calling you to leave behind? Please share in the comments below. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to find their courage. If this message has stirred something in your spirit, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's been walking through their own wilderness. Remember, the light you've received isn't meant to be hidden, it's meant to illuminate the path for others. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey tonight. Your presence, your attention, your spiritual hunger, it matters more than you know. You've made space in your life to receive this word, and that alone is an act of faith. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eliora Path channel so we can continue walking together. Each week, God entrusts me with fresh revelation specifically for chosen ones like you. divine insights that bring clarity to confusion and purpose to pain. Remember, what God starts, He always finishes. The same God who called you is faithful to complete the good work He began in you. You're not just chosen, you're cherished. You're not just called, you're crowned. Go forth in confidence, dear ones. Heaven is waiting for your next move. May the peace of God that surpasses all understanding guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus tonight and forevermore.